How's it going, everybody? This is the Stimulus Check Hub here to give you your daily stimulus check and unemployment benefits updates and the latest information. If you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. A like and a comment are always appreciated. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing this with your friends and family, because I'm sure they would also like the most up-to-date information on their stimulus checks and unemployment benefits available anywhere on YouTube, which is what I try to provide here on this channel.
The Fed just announced the first interest rate hike since 2018. You know, before this whole pandemic craziness went down, right? Yeah, so it looks like they're ramping up for more crackdowns ahead as the committee also penciled in increases at each of the 6 remaining meetings this year, pointing out to a consensus funds rate of 1.9% by the year end. Now that is a full percentage point higher than indicated in December. The committee sees 3 more hikes in 2023, then none the following year. Overall, we're counting 10 rate hikes from now until next year. Now, according to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, quote, "We are attentive of the risks of further upward pressure on inflation and inflation expectations. The committee is determined to take the measures necessary to restore price stability. The U.S. economy is very strong and well positioned to handle tighter monetary policy," end quote. I sure hope he's right this time. Now, some other interesting numbers from the meeting are here. Committee members bumped up their inflation estimates, expecting the personal consumption expenditures price index, excluding food and energy, to reflect 4.1% growth this year compared to the 2.7% projection in December 2021. On GDP, December's 4% was sliced to 2.8% as the committee particularly noted the potential implications of the Ukraine-Russian war. Subsequent years were unchanged. The committee still expects the unemployment rate to end this year at 3.5%. Bottom line, guys, expect prices to peak further in the year. Plus, get ready for loans, mortgages, and credit card bills to get even bigger. Real quick explainer here. By raising its federal funds rate, the rate that banks charge one another for overnight loans, the Fed essentially is setting off a domino effect. So whether directly or indirectly, a number of borrowing costs for consumers are going to go up. So in theory, this slows down demand for goods and it taps the brakes on inflation. Now we know that they're projecting more rate hikes in the year. So for now, you're probably going to feel a pinch with higher prices, even more than we're feeling right now after they bump up a quarter point. But brace yourselves, you guys, because the further they go with these interest rate hikes, the more you're going to feel it in your wallet. Experts expect that the 30-year fixed rate mortgage will crest over the 4% mark this week. On the other hand, home equity lines of credit and adjustable rate mortgages will generally move higher with the Fed's rates. Now for credit cards, expect those interest rates to be passed down to you within 1 or 2 statements of your billing cycles. Expert advice: consider a 0% balance transfer credit card. Some of those last up to 21 months, so you can definitely catch your breath a little bit and get a decent foothold on your debt. Student loans depend on whether you're getting it from the federal program or if it's a private one. Federal student loan borrowers, they're pretty much not affected because those loans carry a fixed rate set by the government. Private student loan borrowers, however, should expect to pay a little bit more. Both fixed and variable rate loans are linked to benchmarks that track the federal funds rate. Car loans, auto loans, you're gonna be looking at a little bit more per month, not much, usually about $3 more per month in payments, so really not that much of a big difference. Now, experts are saying that it's really the credit score that's gonna matter more for your auto loans. Borrowers with poor credit scores might pay 20% or more, while those with pristine credit might qualify for rates near zero. Now, it's also good to note that an increase in the Fed benchmark often means that banks will pay more interest on your deposits. But of course, not necessarily right away. And savings banks, even though they might bump it up a little bit, it's not going to be life-changing money. So now in general, smaller banks and online banks, they tend to pay better rates more quickly than the larger institutions. We've also seen this in the savings arms of credit card banks, including Capital One as well as American Express. Still, top of mind for most Americans right now is inflation. I mean, am I right, guys? I mean, here, watch this.
Across America, families are spending $276 more per month on average because of inflation, according to Moody's Analytics. But here in Tampa, Florida, they're feeling the squeeze even more.
Does that number sound about right to you? Yeah, I mean, I would say in that ballpark is pretty accurate.
Do you estimate that you might spend even more some months?
Yeah.
Gina Tullio and her family of 4 live just outside Tampa, the metro area with the highest rate of inflation in the country, soaring to 9.6% in the last year.
It doesn't seem to be slowing down. That's where the real concern is.
She's feeling it with daycare.
It went up by like $30 a week.
At the grocery store,
my eggs are $1 more. And then I looked at the milk and I was like, that's $1.50 more for the same gallon.
And at the pump.
I'm like, oh my God, $4. I paid $4.09 today for gas. So,
Is that the highest you've paid?
yeah.
But the biggest pain is at the Rita's Italian Ice franchise she just opened.
Have you been to Rita's before? Really? Oh, well, you're in for a treat.
She's getting ready for her supply costs to go up on everything from paper goods to sugar.
This price is going to go up by 20%.
She says she doesn't want to raise prices, but in order to do that, she's cut her entire salary.
It's got to come from somewhere. And so it's a really tough position, like, to be in as a business owner. So I'll take it from me.
Millennials like Tulio and Latinos have seen the steepest rise in living costs, and the growing Latino population here in Tampa is outpacing the national average. In December, Catherine Baez says her rent went up by $400. What did you think? I asked her.
¿Y qué pensaste?
Yo no puedo pagar eso.
I can't pay it. I can't, she said. So she moved and is now picking up odd jobs just to keep up with rising costs. Her one-woman beauty services business isn't covering the bills.
He tenido que limpiar casas.
I've had to clean homes, offices. It's not very comfortable, but it has to be done, she said. Trying to keep up for her and her son has been hard, she says. I ask her how it's been emotionally.
¿Cómo te sientes emocionalmente sobre eso?
Entra en cierta ansiedad.
There is uncertainty because when the date for paying these bills arrives and you don't have the full amount, you feel anguished. As a sole provider, as a single mother, it is difficult, she said.
Financial experts predict inflation is going to get better within the year, even without the Fed hiking interest rates in their next meetings. But here's a breakdown.
I think you take two things out of this. Number one, I think the chairman kind of admitted he was behind the curve. And he came out and
He didn't say it. He said, let others make that judgment.
I said he kind of admitted it. He admitted it by saying 7 this year, 4 in the following years. So he put 11 rate hikes on the table. And to me, that was, without ever saying I'm behind the curve, saying, okay, we've got some work to do ahead of us. But I also think by doing that, he has got the market in a position where he is now, as you said, put him in a position where every meeting is live. But every meeting being live means that he doesn't necessarily have to raise rates at every meeting. But he has prepared the market for a position where he could, if he wants to, raise rates at every meeting.
Do you
going
think the
forward.
next surprise could be actually they don't raise interest rates at every meeting?
I think that's the position he's put us in right now. I think by saying every meeting's live and saying I'm going to raise at every meeting, he's probably put that optionality on the table. That's how I interpret it. I think that's how the markets have interpreted it. And I think they're interpreting it as, okay, he's admitting where we are. He's admitting where in many respects, he's admitting they're behind the curve. He's admitting where inflation is.
But why is that a good thing for the market?
Although the inflation number they put out is not one that I think they can get to.
Right, so they expect 4.1% at the end of this year.
Yeah, I don't think they can get to that in any way, shape, or form.
What would be a more realistic
Look,
target?
they're going to get help on inflation. They're going to get help on inflation because, as you know, the baseline is going to get better for them. As we get into the second half of this year, we started having a lot of wage and commodity inflation in the second half of last year. So when you look at the year-over-year numbers,
the comps get better.
The comps get dramatically better.
Yeah.
So literally by doing nothing except moving the months forward, our year-over-year inflation numbers are going to start looking better and better, whether he raises rates or not.
But you still think 4.1 is aggressive?
So I think anything with a 4 handle is pretty aggressive. I think he'd be lucky to see something with a 5 handle. It's probably somewhere in the high 5s, low 6s is what we're going to get. We still probably haven't seen the peak. You know, a lot of this volatility that's still in the system has not fed completely through. We've still got a lot of input inflation. We're going to see that on the commodity side. Everyone talks about oil. No one talks about the agricultural market. The agricultural market's probably more important
we do now. We're watching wheat
than the oil. It is. It's more important than the oil market. The oil market you can turn on, you can turn off. You get planting seasons in the agriculture markets, and if you miss the planting window, it doesn't reoccur. So the oil market is a little bit different. We're just talking about, can you ship it? Can you ship it out of certain places? Are you displacing oil from one market to another market? And I think we found that that's what's happening. That's why prices sort of resumed back to where it was sort of pre-Ukrainian situation. But the wheat market is completely different. You know, the wheat market, we're going to get one planting season.
Hopefully Congress will do something about it. Senator Joe Manchin called inflation a tax and a killer.
But the inflation is what's killing all of us. I can tell you, inflation is hurting every West Virginian. And everybody that goes to the store or drives to work or whatever and seeing it directly affecting their decisions they're making and how they're providing for their family. Inflation is the one killer. It is a tax. Inflation is a tax no matter how you look at it. And you got to get your financial house in order. You got to have a tax code that works. You got to fight the high cost of prescription drugs. And we've got to also, we can walk and chew with our climate positions in our country by basically making sure that we're energy independent, we have the cleanest fossil fuels, we produce them cleaner than anybody, and also we have the ability to invest in the new technology and the cleaner technology that we need for a better climate. We can do it all.
He wants Congress to get our financial house in order. That means fixing the tax code and lowering those prescription drug prices. Other lawmakers have their own stimulus plans in the works too, cracking down on oil price gouging, plus a $300 gas voucher. Stay tuned because we're going to get to those in just a little bit. Other important news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, he addressed the U.S. Congress and told lawmakers, quote, "We need you right now," as he invoked tragedies in American history like the attack on Pearl Harbor and the September 11th terrorist attack. Zelensky had an important message for President Biden, quote, "You are the leader of your great nation. I wish you would be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace." Biden later pledged ongoing U.S. aid to the Ukraine and announced an additional $800 million in security assistance as he condemned Russia's attacks on a speech of his own. Quote, "America is leading this effort together with our allies and partners, providing enormous levels of security and humanitarian assistance that we're adding to today, and we're going to continue to do more in the days and weeks ahead," end quote. So that brings our total to $1 billion in aid announced just last week. According to news sources, the package of military assistance will include anti-tank missiles and more of the defensive weapons that the U.S. has already been providing, including Javelin, anti-tank, and Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. This is what officials have confirmed who are familiar with the plans. Still, Zelensky didn't get the response that he was hoping for, which is a no-fly zone over the Ukraine. Lawmakers say it's his strategy all along. Representative Tom Malinsky, he explained, quote, "The point of the no-fly zone request is to make us feel guilty that we can't do the no-fly zone so that we work even harder on everything else we can do." It's brilliant. It's exactly what he should be doing, end quote. Senator Chris Murphy also said, quote, "You can't leave the speech without thinking to yourself, what more can we do?" And I think that will be the question a lot of members are asking, end quote. Of course, we're not forgetting about Americans either. I've got something for us too. Some serious stimulus for gas money. First, Congress is looking to crack down on the price gouging from oil companies. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki explains the situation right here.
I wanted to make a note on gas prices. Right now, oil prices are $94 per barrel. When oil was at this level 1 month ago, the average cost of a gallon of gasoline was $3.49. And yet now the average cost of gas is $4.32. When it comes to oil and gas prices, many accept that gas prices rise quickly but fall slowly, the so-called rockets and feathers phenomenon. But President Biden rejects that. Americans deserve relief and fast as oil prices fall. Retail gasoline prices are updated at least daily, and if gas retailers' costs are going down, they need to immediately pass those savings on to consumers.
You got that right. We definitely deserve better. Now, according to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Senate is going to get answers.
Something is happening that Americans shouldn't overlook. Over the past few days, oil prices have actually been decreasing, but the price of gas at the pump has not. Some of the economists call this stickiness. When the costs go up, the price to the consumer goes up. When the costs go down, the price to the consumer stays high. Stickiness does not come close to describing the outrage that Americans feel about this. The last time that the price of oil, a barrel of oil was at $96, gas was $3.62 a gallon. Oil prices have now come down to $96 again, and yet the price of gas continues to rise. It's now at $4.31. The bewildering incongruity between falling oil prices and rising gas prices smacks of price gouging and is deeply damaging to working Americans. The Senate is going to get answers.
House Representatives Shalasky, Cicilline, Pallone, and Nadler, they announced a bill to protect American consumers from price gouging during the pandemic. This would look into different forms of price gouging. Whether the price grossly exceeds the average price that the same good or service was sold for the 90 days before January 31st, 2020, or during the same 90-day period of the previous year. Whether the price grossly exceeds the average price of the same good or service sold by similar situated sellers during the same period, and whether the price reasonably reflects additional costs to the seller or the profitability of foregone sales. According to the group statement, quote, "It's outrageous that some companies and individuals are taking advantage of American consumers by price gouging during the pandemic. Goods and services such as hand sanitizer, personal protective equipment, and other medical supplies, and many other items would be covered by this bill because every American deserves access to these essential goods at a reasonable price." End quote. Now, aside from those that they mentioned, the bill would also cover goods and services offered in commerce, including but not limited to food, water, personal protective equipment, respirators, medical supplies, cleaning supplies, sanitizers, healthcare services, delivery services, or cleaning services. One organization looked into the numbers and found companies are even charging customers even more to pad their profit margins. It's kind of messed up though. But what's worse, CEOs are not just admitting the price gouging, but they're openly bragging to investors about how well it's working. One oil executive in late February said, quote, "It's tragic what's going on in Eastern Europe, but if anything, these high prices, the volatility, drive even more energy security and long-term contracting," end quote. And people are catching on. A new poll found that 63% of voters believe that, quote, "large companies are taking advantage of the pandemic to raise prices unfairly to consumers and increase profits," end quote. Senator Elizabeth Warren explained the current situation with corporations right now. Quote, "What has also happened is that now we're living in America where there's a lot more concentration in certain industries. Look at the oil industry. Look at the meat industry. Look at groceries in general. What's happened is that these companies have said, we'll pass along the costs, but while we're at it and everyone's talking about rising costs, let's just add a big dollop of cost increases to expand our profits," end quote. Bottom line, part one, yes, very much the pandemic. Part two, companies that recognize that because they don't face a lot of competition, you can goose these prices up, end quote. Hopefully this new Congress oversight that they're planning would actually help out with our bottom line when it comes to fuel and food prices. But what about our top line? Well, there's this new proposal from a group of economists for a $300 gas voucher to offset these gas hikes. Sort of like a stimulus check, but for gas prices. Now, according to the chief economist, quote, "If I were Dem leadership in the House, I'd bring forward a bill to give $50 billion in gas price relief to low-income households and defy Republicans' vote against it," end quote. That means $200 or $300 per month per family, assuming that they typically pump 100 gallons each month into their cars. And they said, quote, "Total cost of $100 billion for 6 months, worth every penny to protect our freedom and our economy," end quote. And good news, guys, we're already seeing 5 states considering a suspension of their gas tax. Several Democratic governors of Colorado, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, but even Georgia. They sent a joint letter to congressional leaders urging them to support legislation suspending the federal gas tax until the end of the year.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. A like and a comment are always appreciated. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing this with your friends and family, because I'm sure they would also like the most up-to-date information on their stimulus checks and unemployment benefits available anywhere on YouTube. Have a good one.